So glad you could join us, Adam Pellerin and Andy Brickley. It's episode number 20 of the Hockey Hub. That's a nice round number, Brick.
Yeah, 20 on the 2011 team, was part of the Merlot line. Remember Danny Paille, of course. When I was a kid watching the Bruins win cups in 70 and 72, it was Dallas Smith that wore number 20.
And you got Swoop, of course. Bob Sweeney wore number 20.
Of course.
Lee Stempniak, I believe, was a number 20 in one of his stints in Boston as well. So yeah, it's a good episode. It's a good number, and also a good number for the Bruins is 2 points, which they were able to pick up against the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday night. A much-needed win. Going to take a deep dive into that. We'll also hear your one-on-one interview with interim head coach Joe Sacco. It was a great sit-down interview. I got an advanced listen of it, so we'll have a little chat on the back end of that as well. Also look ahead to the next matchup against the Calgary Flames, which is game 4 of 5 on this 2-week-long trip for the Bruins. But before we take a deep dive into the win over the Canucks, Brick, how is the trip going for you so far?
Well, it's the first trip, Adam, of the year that I was supposed to and listened to bring my overcoat. When we landed in Winnipeg, they told us it had been pretty mild there until we got on the plane in Boston. And by the time we landed, there was a foot of snow on the ground, and it was pretty cold. So it was winter in the middle part of Canada, certainly in Winnipeg, just north of North Dakota, for those that don't know where Winnipeg in Canada is. So yeah, it was winter, and then the weather changed when you go out to the West Coast. Seattle and Vancouver is usually pretty mild, pretty rainy, and that lived to be true. That's the weather report. As far as the hockey, the first couple of games was painful because, as well or as not as well as the Bruins played for the majority of both games, meaning no consistency, no continuity, self-inflicted mistakes that cost them. They did play a decent amount of hockey where they played well enough to manage the game, and both third periods let them down, as we've seen a lot this year in the losing column for Boston. Third periods haven't been great. So to that point, Adam, the trip was not a whole lot of fun. There's not a whole lot going on in Winnipeg. I'm glad we were just in and out. No disrespect to the town and the people. I did play there. And Seattle, I always had high expectations for Seattle. I think it's probably a more enjoyable city in the summertime. The weather wasn't great. The results wasn't good. But they've done a lot of things right there. They had just lost their owner. I know the Bruins and certainly Nesson covered that little ceremony that they for Mr. Bonderman, and that was well deserved. But they do a lot of things right out there. The rink is spectacular. I don't know if you've been out there, Adam, for the hockey. I'm pretty sure you've been there for baseball, but what an arena, that Climate Pledge Arena. They did it right. It's a great place to call a game. It's a great place to watch a game. And even though the Bruins didn't play well enough to get 2 points, the experience was pretty good. Now we're in Calgary. We've got some time off. We had yesterday completely off. I'll make it clear. We had Sunday off and we had Monday off in terms of no games. Don't play Calgary till Tuesday. That being said, we had an opportunity to spend Sunday, watch a little football, watch a little hockey, but we did it from Banff. My partner is an avid skier. He went to East Sunshine Village. And Stevie D, Beersy, and myself, we tagged along, and we got to experience Banff, not from the slopes, but from the village. So that's been my trip so far, and it's coming off one of the best performances of the year in Vancouver by Boston.
Yes, it is. And just to get back to what you had said earlier, I was with you guys on that trip last year in Seattle, Climate Pledge Arena. It's a very interesting rink because it's underground and so street level. Right. Yeah. So it's a unique situation there, but an unfortunate result for the Bruins. And just to get back to the other thing you mentioned about Banff and your current partner being an avid skier, I think your former partner is an avid skier as well, and Jack Edwards. And I know during the broadcast, Judd had mentioned that he did receive a text from Jack about the conditions. So still very much in tune with the hockey and the skiing is Jack. But going back to what you had said about the result in Vancouver, a much-needed win for the Bruins, a 5-1 win over the Canucks on Saturday night. And it's something that you had said off the top, was something that the Bruins were able to not do is chase the score, right? Don't chase the score. It's something that they had done in the first two games of the trip, trailing 2-0 after the first period in each of the first two games and committing penalties early in games that got them behind the eight ball. The Bruins instead were able to take a 2-0 lead themselves, and they were able to score on the power play. Brick, high level, what was your takeaway from the win over the Canucks?
Yeah, the two things that jump off the chart for me, Adam, is execution and discipline. You know, the execution, the ability to move the puck tape to tape, the right time to the right people, that allows you to play with pace, number one. And the discipline, you already touched on it in terms of not taking penalties and having to kill penalties or giving up power play goals in the first period and falling behind. Their discipline in every aspect of the game, whether it's defense or offense, was impressive to say the least. And when you play with those two elements, and you have the roster and the talent that the Bruins have, they're going to win more games than they lose, and that's what stood up.
Yeah, and the Bruins taking the lead with Brad Marchand's power play goal, and boy, I'll tell you, that power play, that first crack at it looked really good. And you had mentioned a couple of things during the broadcast that stood out to you. If you could recap, just now, just looking back.
Yeah, the power play. First of all, you want to win that initial draw, and they did that. They have that capability. I think Lindholm's a good draw guy, especially on his strong side on the right side of the rink, and that's always a good start with a shot mentality. Get an opportunity right away, right in the first 10 seconds of the man advantage. I think that sets a good tempo. I think they've gotten away from and less reliant on the delay when the puck does get cleared and they're trying to get re-entry. I think that they're not looking for the delay all the time, which allows whether it's Pastrnak or Sacco, but more importantly, Charlie McAvoy to carry the puck a little bit more. I think their entries are easier when they do it more of a traditional style. I mean, it's nice to have the delay, and it can be very effective when executed properly. And the percentages might be higher when it's done properly. But when it's not, it becomes start again. Oops, start again. And I think it gets McAvoy more into a power play mentality if he has the puck more and carries the puck more. And I think it shows itself in his ability to play on instinct more than thinking what he's supposed to be doing. And that's good for him when you talk about the power play because he has to control that power play from the top of the umbrella. And then it's the movement in the offensive zone. And the goal by Marchand is a classic. Marchand rotates out to the top almost like a left defenseman. He throws it over to the overload side to David Pastrnak, who's not standing still. He takes the pass somewhat deep into the offensive zone, and he comes out around the top of the circle. So now he's moving. And now Lindholm understands that if he's moving in that direction, I can slide over to the goal line and create a 2-on-1 while Marchand makes a direct diagonal line for that far post. Now there's your triangle down low with your three guys that you want handling the puck, and then it's the execution. Tape to tape at the right time. No goalie's going to save that. No goalie. You can cheat all you want. Marchand's going to bury that top shelf. I mean, it could be halfway up the net. He's still going to score. But it's the decision-making, it's the execution, it's the movement of the power play players. And, of course, that builds confidence with a man advantage. I think they've got, 4 power play goals in the last 5 or 6 games. So it's coming. It's coming. It won't come overnight. They won't be all of a sudden an offensive juggernaut with the man advantage. But they're starting to do the right things because they're moving and thinking less. And when they do that, their natural talents take over.
Yeah, 4 in the last 6 games, Brick, to your point. And Brad Marchand himself has 5 goals in the last 6 games. And, his leadership is really something, that I think is more important now than ever, right? Because the team is struggling. And it seems like he's really, between he had, the power play goal, but you also had his leadership on the PK as well, generating a lot of shorthanded opportunities for himself. It was a 2-on-1. I think that the Bruins had an opportunity on shorthanded, but also the situation with Quinn Hughes, right, getting involved physically. Marchand looked like he thought that he was taking a shot at his head. Marchand took exception to that, and he gets involved. And so it's just getting everybody involved, dragging guys into the fight.
Yeah, and think about it. You lose 8-1, you lose 5-1. You have bad third periods in both games. Is there enough in terms of silver linings, whether it's coming from the coaching staff, in the team meetings, breaking down of the video, Brad Marchand having to answer questions as captain of the team to the media, to the public, and he's very matter of fact. He doesn't want to be negative, but he's very matter of fact. And that's the beauty of hockey players, and this team in particular, that they understand when they don't play well and they can handle criticism, and especially when it comes from within the room by the team leader. And in order to come out of those two losses with the right message and create the right attitude and the right frame of mind going into Vancouver saying, okay, it's not a must win, but it's a must play way better kind of game. And I think that's a tribute to the leadership group, to Marchand in particular, to his performance. Loved his penalty shot goal. The kids, that's why I say the game was manageable at that point. That second period, they were pretty good in that second period in Seattle, and he makes that goal to make it 2-1. You're right in the game, and then you have that bad third period. But the point being, the leadership going into Vancouver, the way they perform, the complete game performance in every aspect of the game, and I think that stems from 63 and his ability to get the message across.
Yeah, and you talk about the big boys stepping up, right? And that includes David Pastrnak, who had himself a great game in Vancouver, had the goal, but the 3 assists, there were things of beauty for sure. And David Pastrnak, we've talked about the goal scoring aspect of his game not being up to his standard, what we expect to see. But it's games like that remind you of how special he is. Here's what Pasta had to say after the win over the Canucks.
Yeah, I'm a goal scorer, but I feel it's just not so far. I haven't been this year. I haven't got the looks. How I said, we were struggling a lot on power play. Now the power play keeps coming. Last 3-4 games. So it's gonna for sure be better. And I always try to look to make plays, and I don't mind assists.
So David Pastrnak, talking about, he's a goal scorer, but he was a facilitator on Saturday. But Brick, that goal, that wraparound, that's not something you really see often from David Pastrnak. It's more of a snipe that you're used to seeing when he scores goals.
Yeah, and he referenced he had his skating game, and I couldn't agree more. He's not a guy that can play the game standing still. Even on the power play, he just can't, put stakes down on that offside face-off dot, wait for the one-timer. He's got to be moving. He's got to be in motion. When he does, he plays the game so much better. He's so much more effective. Like on the first goal, the power play goal by Marchand, that's a secondary assist. I think secondary assists are as important as primaries. I think they're as important as guys that you wish would figure in a goal when they were the third assist on the play, because it puts everything in motion, particularly on a power play. One thing leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to the goal. And for Pastrnak to be on the move, to go out by the top of the circle, to make the right pass at the right time when the defender starts to move, it creates the other 2-on-1 in front of that. So that's a critical play. That's a critical pass. It doesn't seem like much at the time, but it's very important. Go back to the Philly game. We were talking about him in the third period before the Bruins made that great comeback and win the game in overtime. The plays that he was making, okay, he's not scoring goals. I believe they're going to come. I think he'll be in the 30-goal category for sure at the end of the year. And he mentioned it, as the power play improves, and it will improve, the goal scoring numbers will go up for him in particular. But he has the ability to make plays, and when he's not skating, he turns the puck over, Adam. And that's where the numbers get skewed for his turnover rate, is when he's not playing at the pace capable of playing. His skating game has to match, his shooting game. The accuracy goes up, the goals go up when he has that A-game skating game, and he had it in Vancouver, and that's what you're looking for from 88 on most nights.
Yeah, it was great to see David Pastrnak with a 4-point game. And it was also great to see, the Bruins playing to their identity in terms of being stingy defensively, right? We're talking about a Vancouver Canucks team that is pretty good offensively. They got some weapons there. And the Bruins, got a great performance defensively and from their goaltender, Jeremy Swayman. It's something that the captain talked about post-game.
Had to tighten up defensively, which we did a really good job at first couple periods. Wanted to play quicker, which would give us more offensive opportunities, which we did a better job at. And hold on to it down low, which I thought we did a good job at times. There's areas we can continue to improve and be better at, but for the most part, it was good.
On that checklist of things you wanted to do, feel best about the defensive part?
That's where we've always had success, so we have to continue to focus on that first and foremost, be really tight defensively. and we create offense from that. So yeah, we need to feel good about that and execute at a very high level defensively. When we do, we're a good team.
Yeah, and it's something that Joe Sacco had talked about in his conversation with you post game. Being the best part of the win was the fact that they were able to keep the puck out of the net.
Yeah, and again, that goes to the discipline in the details. And just to follow up on what Marcy's talking about, they did a nice job when they were in their own zone. They weren't there a ton, which we'll get to in a second. But when they were in their own zone, and there was a push, particularly in the second period, when Vancouver got some opportunity, they spent some time in the offensive zone. And what Boston did very well and have done very well most nights under Joe Sacco is own the middle of the ice. Good body position, stick position to keep things more to the perimeter. So they owned the middle of the ice. The switches were good. The communication layers were there. Up ice, they did a nice job with their gaps in the neutral zone. They didn't invite Vancouver in off the rush. Times when the Bruins were losing hockey games, they were just backing off, keeping plays in front of them. Before you know it, I'll be a goaltender. That's no way to defend, particularly when you're defend through the neutral zone. I thought in the offensive zone, in terms of defense, like the goal that Mark McLaughlin scored was a great example of back checking in the offensive zone, Adam. You take away the middle of the ice with a back check when there's pinches along the wall or trying to create a turnover, whatever it is. You don't have the puck in the offensive zone, yet you score a goal very quickly on a turnover because you're playing solid defense in the offensive zone. And I think away from the puck, the way the Bruins played, the discipline in the details were very, very impressive.
Yep, a full 60 from the Bruins, a great start, and a much-needed win. As Charlie McAvoy talked to Judd Surratt post-game, just the vibes in the room were this was a must-win for this group, and they were able to pick up the 2 points. You're watching the Hockey Hub, and if you like what you hear, then make sure to like and subscribe to the show. Hockey Hub can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and wherever else podcasts are found. All right. Adam Pellerin and Andy Brickley here with you on episode 20 of the Hockey Hub. And while that was a nice win for the Bruins, obviously there are still some things, in terms of the big picture that the team would like to address. And of course, we've talked about the offensive aspect of their game, goal scoring. And yeah, the Bruins were able to make a waiver claim, and pick up Oliver Wahlstrom, who, I think people might remember him because we've showed the video about 1 million times, the mini one-on-one back in the day at TD Garden, and really became one of the first hockey influencers out there with that spinorama, just incredible shot, and obviously became a first-round pick, played a year at Boston College, first-round pick of the Islanders. And, Brick, this is a guy that, I don't want to say they maybe fell out of favor with the Islanders, needs a fresh start, and Boston took a flyer.
Yeah, a number of ways to look at this, Adam. First of all, that goal that he scored as what was he, a squirt or peewee or whatever he was, that we've shown 1 million times. You never get tired of seeing those goals. You never get tired of seeing goals that maybe it's the first time you've seen it or it's so spectacular. You welcome any time you get a look at it. So I'll put that goal in that category. It's like the first time you saw the lacrosse goal, right?
Yeah, right.
Something that had never really been seen at the NHL level. You saw it at college a little bit, but when it snuck into the NHL game, you don't get tired of seeing those kinds of goals. That being said, but as far as the acquisition of Oliver Wahlstrom, the Bruins have tried to draft and develop. And this year, when you were struggling to be a 500 team, you reached down and try to bring up some institutional depth that would put a little bit more pressure on the guys that find themselves as healthy scratches. And you hope that works upward all the way to the star players, meaning we need more. We need better play. You're not playing to expectations. And if you have institutional depth and you put pressure on the players, I think you get better results. Now, by acquiring a guy, it does put more pressure, a little bit more competition. And you add to your depth, has plenty of NHL experience. He's an NHL player. He's a first-round pick. And yeah, you like to lean on the fact that when a player changes organizations, he gets different opportunities. He has a different outlook on life. He gets a little energized about the opportunity and being prepared for that opportunity, whatever it may be. Bruins to add to the table of depth in terms of players. So it's an obvious move, and you hope it works for the player and certainly for the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the fact that he is a Maine guy, from Cumberland, Maine originally, and gets to play at TD Garden as a member of the Boston Bruins, as somebody from New England, which I know you can certainly speak to. That's a big thrill. I think the number, if I remember correctly, is 87 players in Bruins history from New England. I think that's something that Judd had said on the broadcast. And so now I believe it'll be 88 players with Oliver Wahlstrom. And you talk about internal answers, Brick. Matthew Poitras, obviously somebody that is one of those internal answers that the Bruins hope will continue to develop in Providence. And I think fans get really excited when they see a player perform down in Providence, and that's what Poitras is doing right now. Now, the difference is that he does have some NHL experience. Sometimes you get excited about a guy who's never played in the NHL before because they're putting up numbers in the A. But with that said, Poitras does have NHL experience and is on a heater right now. He's scored a goal in 6 straight games. I guess the question is this more about the Bruins' plan for Poitras and saying, hey, look, you're going to play like 6 to 8 weeks in Providence and reassess, or do they assess how he's playing in the moment and say, wow, we need to make a move now and bring him back up?
Yeah, the key is when you bring a player up from the minors, in this case, Poitras, because he's already played in the NHL and he's in Providence for a reason. The thing you don't want is the yo-yo. You don't want to call him up if he's not completely ready, regardless of the offensive numbers he might be putting up in the American Hockey League. The question is he doing what he's down there to do in order to grow his game so that he's NHL ready, that when he goes back to Boston and he's slotted into a position where he's going to help the Bruins win plenty of games, that he's not going to go back to Providence because he's worked on the areas of his game that needed to improve. That's really what the eyeball test is. That's what the Bruins team of development is all about. When they break down the tape, when they watch him, he's going to score. He's going to get points. He's a good player. He's a good offensive player. That league isn't as hard, as good as it is. It's not as hard as the NHL. And he's going to be put in offensive situations. He's going to get those offensive stops to start shifts. He's going to play top power play. So the expectations are, he'll get his offense going, and he'll be a good offensive player for the Providence Bruins. But is he playing well behind, away from the puck? Is he winning his physical battles? Is he making the right decisions that are required to play on a night-to-night basis in the NHL? And if he's improving in those areas and he gets to certain levels in those areas, then when he comes to Boston on a call-up, he's not going back. He's going to be a Bruin, and he's going to be an important piece. And until he gets there, and maybe he's there right now, I don't know. But when he gets to that level, he'll be a Boston Bruin. That's the message that's been sent to him. And it sounds like he's received that message, whether they've told him you're going to be there for 3 months, a set time, and then we'll reevaluate, as you pointed out, Adam. Or is it just, case by case, where is he at? What's his level? Is points where we say we can call him up? That is really the decision for Boston. That's probably where they're at right now when you talk about Matt Poitras.
Yeah, 11 points in his last 7 games, the 6-game goal streak, 14 points in 14 games, and a +8 overall. Playing on a line, centering a line, I should point out, because there was some talk about him maybe moving to wing. We've seen him at wing and center with the Bruins. He's been centering a line with Georgi Merkulov and Vinny Lettieri. So we'll keep an eye on Matt Poitras and also Oliver Wahlstrom, who the Bruins just signed. For more on the Bruins and the biggest trending news in the sports world, check out Boston Has Entered the Chat. It's hosted by George Bellecci and Travis Thomas. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever else podcasts are found. All right, up next for the Bruins, Game 4 of 5 on their trip out west to date with the Calgary Flames, a team that the Bruins beat back on November 7th at TD Garden. Brad Marchand, who else? The game winner in overtime, assisted by Elias Lindholm, won a puck battle, nice feed to Marchand, big 2 points at the time for the Bruins. Now you face the Flames team, who's coming off a 3-0 win over the Florida Panthers, and it's funny, the Canucks came off a 4-0 win over the Panthers, ended up losing to the Bruins, of course, and now the Flames up next for the black and gold. It's a Flames team, Brick, that's played well at home. They're 7-1-1 in their last 9 games, game 2 of their 5-game homestand. What do you expect to see on Tuesday night?
I expect to see a very good Calgary team because of what you just said. They like playing at home. They're used to playing, and it's one of those buildings that does still have its own personality in terms of quality of ice and liveliness of words and knowing the angles. Whether it's an indirect pass through the neutral zone or if it's a rebound off a shot from the point on the backboards or it comes out lively back to the front of the net. They play faster at home than they do on the road, and that's confidence and some of that home ice advantage, if you want to call it that. So I expect a pretty good performance from Calgary. Knowing that the Bruins are coming off a great performance against Vancouver, they should be up for the matchup. That being said, this is a very winnable hockey game, Adam. I mean, I think they don't have the depth in terms of 6 defensemen. I think the other 4, the bottom 4, however you want to describe it, I think are very beatable if you want to spend some time in the offensive zone and have to make them defend. What we saw in Vancouver was how much the Bruins spent in the offensive zone and used the entire offensive zone. They used the width and, more importantly, the depth. They made a lot of plays from below the goal line. They played that low-high game. I think the Bruins in the last couple of games, even though they didn't win in Seattle, I thought their D was shot ready, and I thought they did a good job of getting pucks to the net. I thought the forwards could have done a better job. The Bruins were much better in terms of getting to the front of the net in that low-high game in the win over Vancouver. So I think Calgary's susceptible to that. They have a pretty good 1-2 punch when you talk about down the middle and Nazem Kadri and Michael Backlund. I don't know if you get that kind of performance, an A-game performance from them nightly basis. I think they're much better in terms of home play than they are on the road when you talk about strength down the middle.
All right, so that's the matchup for the Bruins. The Red Sox offseason is heating up, and the rumors are starting to swirl. We know you have a lot of questions about the Sox future, and we asked the players, coaches, executives, and alumni those same questions on Nesson's baseball podcast, 310 to Left. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else you get your podcasts. By the way, we're counting down the days. Still a couple of years away, but the Saddle Dome, they're building that new place. Saddle Dome, I know you played there, Brick. You had some pretty good numbers, 9 points in 10 games at the Saddle Dome. You did some research. You played there in the first year in that building.
Yeah, I loved playing there. I loved the environment. It had a little bit of an old building feel. I felt like the crowd was pretty close to you. I know from a broadcasting point of view, you're kind of on top of it because it's got a low ceiling, which is always great. And of course, when you're down in the press room and you're making your way to the broadcast booth, you actually walk across the catwalk, which goes over the Jumbotron. And when you're walking across it, it shakes and sways. It's awesome. It's an awesome feeling. So I still get charged up for games, even though I'm not playing anymore. But I liked playing in there because, and I mentioned it earlier, right off the top when we talk about Calgary, I always thought the ice was fast and the boards were lively. And I don't know, I felt like I was a faster player, and I thought faster, and I played quicker. And of course, the numbers were good because I generally was playing with good players that allowed you to, an opportunity to put some points on the board. But I think it's a fun building, and I'm kind of sad that it's going away until I see the new building, right? And if it ends up being something like, we already talked about Climate Pledge. If it ends up being a great building, then okay.
27-28 season it's expected to open up, and so that's next for the Bruins. Brick, recently on this trip, you had a chance to sit down with Joe Sacco, and it was a great conversation. It's something that we have posted to our social media channels, but this is an opportunity to play that interview in its entirety, and we'll get some thoughts on the back end of it from you. But here's Andy Brickley sit down with Joe Sacco.
Joe, I think most Bruins fans are well versed in the fact that you're a Boston guy. You grew up in Medford. You had a great college career at BU. Your great amateur career, 700, 800 games in the NHL. But you've been in the coaching business in this game longer than you were as a player. And I think the Bruins fans, because there's always a new generation of Bruins fans, I think they'd be interested to know Joe Sacco as the coach, you know, his philosophy, what drives him, what keeps him in this business, and those types of things I think would really resonate with the people.
I think when it started for me, it was towards the end of my playing career. I realized that it was coming to an end soon, and what was I going to do post-hockey? And just remember the last few years of playing, really paying attention to the coaches, even more so than when I did earlier on in my career. Paying attention to the details, how they went about their business, and just thinking that this could be something that I could do post-playing career. And the teaching aspect was always intriguing to me. I always felt when you played for a good coach, you remembered that coach, and you learned a lot from him. And so I always felt like that teaching aspect, if I got into coaching, being able to share my experiences when I played as a player, and then obviously when you start to, learn your craft a little bit more about coaching, share that with the players as well. And like I said, I got into coaching. It was maybe a year or so after I retired from playing. I was lucky enough to start out in Lowell, which was Colorado's farm team at the time. They were a split affiliate with Carolina, and I was thrown in as the assistant coach with zero coaching experience. And I worked with a guy by the name of Tom Rowe, who was also another local guy. And Tommy was coaching Carolina's farm team, and that's who we were the split affiliate with. So long story short, that's how I got into coaching. And I think as far as to now, what motivates me still to this day is obviously, well, it's the players. For me, at the end of the day, it's how can you get individuals to be better as part of a team, right? You're trying collectively to win as a group, and then individually you have guys running their own races. And so you're trying to do both. You're trying to have guys have successful careers, but at the same time, you're trying to shape a team and understanding that it's in everybody's best interest if the team does well. Everybody will benefit, and that's the challenge that I really like.
I think most players, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I think most players, when it is winding down their career, and they do give some consideration as to what are we going to do when we're done playing, and we all think we could be pretty good coaches. When did it really take root? Was it that first year in Lowell? Because a lot of guys might try coaching and then they abandon it, but you've stayed with it and made an awesome career out of it.
Yeah, it's been 20 years, I think, or somewhere right around there since I haven't had a year off from coaching, so I've been very fortunate in that regards. I've worked with good people, but I would say the first year was a big learning experience. Like I said, I had no idea how to coach. It didn't. I mean, there's long hours, there's travel involved. I had a young family at the time, and my kids were just starting to, they were 8, 7, and maybe 3 at the time, or 8, 5, and 3 at the time. And so I give my family a lot of credit for obviously allowing me to pursue that career. But I would say it was after the second year or third year that I realized this is something that I could see myself doing more on a regular basis, something that hopefully would, eventually lead to something more.
So how does the reward that you get for being, a quality coach, how does that offset the time and the sacrifice? I mean, you're at the rink probably 3x compared to when you were a player. I mean, that's a major commitment, and you have to chase it. Coaches are hired to be fired, and you got to chase the job opportunity.
I guess it goes back to the passion that you have for the game and the job, right? I think you have to have the passion. If you don't, it doesn't matter what you do in any aspect of your life. You're not going to have success. So if you're passionate about something and you work hard at it and you're dedicated and you put the time in, typically you'll get rewarded. But it's long hours. It's a lot of time away from the family, but and it's a sacrifice, right? It's a sacrifice for them. It's a sacrifice for me, but the reward, I guess, like I said before, at the end of the day, is the ability to work with players, share your experiences that you've had, and hopefully, you can teach them how to be. There's always the systems and the X's and O's, but also teach them how to be good pros and what it takes to be, part of a winning culture, which is something that I've really benefited from being here in Boston.
Yeah, I got to imagine that's really rewarding. But again, especially the higher levels that you coach in, it's about wins and losses. It really comes down to that. It can be all about the plays, and that can be your driving force and getting the most out of them and maximizing their skill sets within the team structure, and that's phenomenal stuff. But then it comes down to wins and losses. And I'm curious about, you've been in it for 20-plus years. Have the players changed? Have the athletes changed in those 20 years in how you go about doing that, getting the most out of these guys?
Well, before I answer that, I should say the other main reason that I'm still in this business and I enjoy it is obviously for the ultimate prize, right? We're all in it. Like you just said, this business is about winning, and at the end of the day, you're here to win the Stanley Cup, right? And to do it here, there'd be no better place. We came close in 19, fell one game short as the assistant. We had a great run, but that's really, at the end of the day, besides everything else, what really drives me anyways as a coach. But so going back to your question again, remind me again what it was. Tell me again.
I was saying, have the players changed?
Oh, the players,
over
yeah.
20+ years?
I think so. Everybody says every generations change, right? I would say the one difference now with the generation is the players today, as opposed to when, I guess, you or I were playing, they want more feedback. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a positive thing. I think, when you talk to players, if someone's not playing well or they're not playing, say they're not in the lineup, they want that feedback. They want to know why. They want the information. And I think, to me, that's been the biggest difference, is the amount of feedback they want. And I look at it in a positive way. I think it's good because that opens up the lines of communication between the player and the coach. I can think back to when I was playing, if I was a scratch or didn't play much back in the days, didn't really hear why a lot. Now there's that information that they get and the reasons why.
Well, I'd like to peel that onion a little bit more, but before we get there, and if we do have time to get there, I think the Bruins fans certainly want to know about the state of the Bruins right now. Let's go back to the first 20 games of the season. Couldn't really get some traction, win one, lose one, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, maybe 2 steps back. Expectations aren't being met by anybody, by the coaching staff, by the players, by the organization. Individual player performances not really where you needed it to be. And then it ends up being a drastic move and they make a coaching change. Now, since then, now that you're at the helm, 7-3 in the last 10. I'm curious how it changes for you as somebody that was the associate coach that now is the head coach, and how does that change your job description and how you go about messaging to the players?
It's a great question. When the change happened, obviously it's it's shocking for everybody, right? You lose a really good coach, even a better person, and then you say, okay, now it's my job, it's my opportunity to help this team get back to where we think it should be at that particular time. And these guys, I've been with these guys for 10 years, not all the players, but a number of them. I've been here for 10 years now. So a lot of the guys here, they already know me as a person. They know who I am. They know how I act. And so you go from that associate role to the head, right? And so there's that transition. But you can't change who you are. You're going to change certain things about, you have to make harder decisions, when it comes to the lineup. There's more on your plate. You have other things to deal with now than you did as an assistant or associate coach. But I think at the end of the day, because of the relationships that I've established with these players going back from that amount of time, and even the ones that haven't been here 10 years, they could be here for a year or two, I believe there's that trust factor between player and coach, and the decisions that we make, the hard decisions, because of the relationships that I've been able to form, there's honesty there, there's truth, and I don't think there's any reason for them to think otherwise. And so that's been the biggest change, is just trying not to, even though it's a different role, you still have to be who you are.
Well, you touch on a couple of things, and 1,000 things raced through my head that I want to talk to you about. I'll start with the most simplest. How's the stress level? How does the stress level change now that you're the guy? Even though the messaging might not change a whole lot, you might not change the way you play a whole lot, you might tweak certain things, but does the stress level change?
It's certainly not lower than it was before. Listen, Boston's a great hockey community, as we both know. Brick, we grew up here. There's pressure to win, so with pressure comes stress. But I feel at the end of the day, I look at it as, I was given an opportunity by management, a second opportunity to be a head coach again, which, it took 10 or 11 years, whatever it was. And when I said if it ever came around again, I was going to look at it in a different way. And I've been able to, over the last 11 years, grow from my experiences and learn from your experiences. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, you have to enjoy what you're doing and take a step back sometimes and realize, like, this is what you've wanted. Enjoy the ride. If you're prepared and you do the work, the stress level goes down, right? If you're not prepared and you're not doing that, then obviously that increases. But we have a great staff. We work hard. We try our best to prepare the team with a good game plan every night. And then hopefully the players go out and execute that game plan at a high level. And that's the way I look at it.
You mentioned the longevity, the 10 years plus with the Boston Bruins. There were some coaching changes. People were wondering, why is Joe Sacco getting passed over? Explain to us the relationship. I mean, you have to be a high-quality coach and a valued piece of the organization to stay in the position that you stayed in, through some of the changes. What's that relationship like with the Bruins, and how do you process how that all falls in place?
From day one, I've been very fortunate. It's been a great relationship with Cam and Donnie up top, obviously running the show. The first year it was Peter who was here, Shirelli, but then there was the change. But I've had a great relationship, and even with the coaches that have come in here, first I was able to work under Claude for a couple of years. Then I went to work with Bruce, and then obviously with Monty, and really good coaches. And I looked at it like it was an opportunity for me to learn and become a better coach because of those guys. There were certain things that each one of those guys brought to the table as a coach that I really admired. There was a lot of things, but there's certain things that you pick out and you see, okay, hey, this could work for me. I really believe in what they're saying and what they're doing. There's other things that may not work for you. But to have the trust from management, even through those coaching changes, that they wanted me to be a part of what was here, I'm pretty proud of that fact, and I'm thankful for that too as well.
Let's go back to the team, the current team. Where are they at mentally, emotionally, physically? Do they have the believability that they got certainly a playoff team? From your vision, what needs to improve? What areas of the game need to be better? Based on your philosophical tenets, what you believe in makes a quality NHL team. Where are you in relationship to wanting to be the team that you want to be?
Well, we're getting there. I think that since over the last 10 games, we've showed signs of improvements in different areas that I believe, and we believe as a staff, that we need to have so we can have success. Every coach has a belief system on how they should play. My belief system is, it just happens to be that I think that it starts from the goaltender out. I think that we have to be a team that defends really well all the time, not just sometimes, all the time. There has to be a commitment to checking from our group, because I believe that that's going to give us the best chance to win. And then I think from there, I think the offense will take care of itself if we look after our responsibilities away from the puck first. Like I said, defending, checking, making sure that we're managing it at the right time. But we've shown a lot of progress, but there's still a lot of work to be done. I think we still have a lot of room for improvement in those areas.
Well, lastly, and thanks for your time, as always. Always love our conversations. I don't know if this is a fair question to end the conversation on, but what's it going to take to get that interim tag off there?
I don't know the answer to that. You talked. I'm focused on Seattle tomorrow, but like I said, I'm trying to do the best job I can. The staff is as well, to help this team move forward. And our ultimate goal is obviously to get to the playoffs. But there's a process involved, and that's what we're trying to stick to on a daily basis. There's going to be highs and lows, and we're always trying to teach and correct, and then we move on. We lost a tough one last night. We worked on it today, and now we move forward. But like I said, I'm trying to enjoy it as well, and then we'll just see what happens from there.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, thanks, Brick.
All right,
Brick, first off, great conversation with Joe Sacco. I love the last question about the interim tag. That was great. But I'll just ask you first, what stood out to you about your conversation with him?
I just think he operates on such an even keel, and I think that works for him. He doesn't get overly excited. He doesn't get overly disgusted, when things are going well or they're going bad. And I think his messaging is very clear and very direct. He obviously has great coaching ability, certainly in the teaching department and the X's and O's. You're not an assistant coach or an associate coach for the amount of time that Joe has been at the NHL level and not have a really good handle on that. The question is, what's his voice going to be like in the room, and will the players not only respect, but believe in it and understand that he is there to help you be the best player you can be within the team framework in order to win a lot of hockey games. And as long as that message is clear from the players, I think Joey's in a good spot. He knows how this opportunity was presented. It's never a very comfortable situation when a friend of yours, a guy that you're actually working with and for, gets fired, and then you assume the throne. That's not the most comfortable, but it's reality. And he's wanted a second chance after having coached Colorado for the amount of time that he did, and did a certainly better than decent job out there. And with the Avalanche, but to get that second opportunity and put the time and effort and work and sacrifice in that he did, in other roles in order to get this opportunity speaks a lot about his character. So I think that's what stands out. But he has a real calmness to his coaching style and the way he messages to the players.
A good result so far, obviously, with a record 8-4-0, and the numbers are better too if you look at a couple, right, since he took over. The PK's ninth, goals against is ninth, right? And those are two areas that he had addressed specifically when he took over the reins. But, Brick, how many times have we seen somebody who, goes through sort of growing pains with their first head coaching job, right? We've seen that time and time again, where there's so much that these individuals learn about being a head coach. It's something that Bruce Cassidy, right, before he took over the reins in Boston, was down in Washington, learned from that experience. And Joe Sacco had talked about the experience in Colorado, and also mentioned the fact that he was a young guy at the time, right? He wasn't even 40 years old when he took over.
Yeah, it's what did you learn, and then how you can apply the lessons that you did learn when you do get that second opportunity in order to be a more effective coach, a guy with greater maturity, a better presence in the room, understanding the players and their makeup and their personalities, their personal life. I mean, there's so much that goes into coaching to be a highly effective coach. Back in the day, in my era, it was more about tyranny than anything else. They were the boss and you towed the line. I mean, that was basically the way it was. It doesn't work that way anymore in order to get the best results. And we all know that. The games have changed, the players have changed, and the teaching has changed, and how you coach has changed. And those are the things you got to learn. And it certainly appears that Joe's got a real good handle of it. He has such a believability in himself as a teacher and as a leader. And that has to come through too. That has to be clear. You have to exude that you have the confidence and you know how good you are, and you know that you have the ability to get the best out of that individual player. And it always comes with challenges. It comes with challenges, whether it's a losing streak or not getting the most out of your best players, or not getting the most out of the leadership group. There will be challenges along the way, and it's how you conquer those challenges that lead to long-term head coach success. And yeah, there's a shelf life, and we all know that too. Claude was there for 10 years, and it seemed to be like time for a change. I was a little behind the game when it came to Cassidy. I didn't believe the narrative that he was on a hot seat because I thought he was such an impressive coach. Yet he got fired. And I think that was the goal with sitting down and talking to the assistant coach or an associate coach. The fans really don't get a lot of interaction. He's not on TV a lot. He's not interviewed a lot. He doesn't do scrums, with the media. We used to do on Nesson at one time, between the second and third, we might interview one of the assistant coaches, and that was just a little snippet, a little window into the assistant coaches and the way they fought the game. Mostly it was all about the game that night. But this was an opportunity to get to know Joe Sacco and what drives him as a head coach or as a coach or a guy at the NHL level. And I think that's really what we were looking to get, to show Bruins fans and Bruins Nation, like, this is a high-quality guy. This is a good hire. This is a guy that has a chance to get really good results as a head coach, and here's the reasons why, because it's from him. It's in his words. And I think that's what we try to get with that sit-down.
Yeah, and you certainly achieved that. 12 games down and 50 games left to go in the season and 2 games left on the road trip. Brick, enjoy the rest of the trip. Look forward to seeing you and Judd on the call on Tuesday night, my friend.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my 5-star hotel background here from Calgary. and Adam, you still do work for Nesson. I wasn't sure. I hadn't seen you in forever.
Yeah, I do. I'm here, and I'll be here for the next episode as well. And we will be reunited on the road soon enough, my friend. So, yes, still
I look
employed.
forward to that.
Very happily employed. All right, buddy. Good to talk to you as we wrap up the Hockey Hub podcast. Adam Pellerin and Andy Brickley. Until next time.